Hello everyone, my name's Amber, and today I'll be speaking all about overcoming the fear of failure. So, oops, amazing. So, a quick introduction to myself. I'm currently working as a junior software engineer. I've created a blog on ambershan.co.uk where I talk about my journey into tech and various other things. I create technical content on a platform that I created called Code Her Journey. I've also previously taught for Code First Girls, their web development course, and also their Python course. And I'm also a brand ambassador for them. Thanks for sharing, Kimberly. So let's start with my experience with failure and how I failed my way into tech, essentially. So let's go back in time to 2018 when I'm in Madrid and doing a mergers and acquisitions internship. I come to the realization from speaking to my mentor that finance was definitely not for me. I found out that my big dreams of going to the Big Four and becoming the most successful finance person out there came to a crashing halt when I found out that I'd have to do exams, and if I didn't pass those exams, I would fail. I'm sorry, I would be fired. I would literally be fired if you didn't pass those exams. And that's when I found about coding and about tech, when I looked into high in demand skills for the future. So when I joined Code First Girls, it was a big learning curve, like I had to think completely differently. It was just a completely new experience. I just remember breaking things constantly, seeing the red error messages and feeling like maybe this isn't for me, maybe I'm not smart enough. And when I was applying for internships, I had to learn the new way of applying, because in tech, it's almost like you have to prove yourself before you can land that job. Whereas with finance, you can say things like, yes, I'm very passionate and I'm willing to learn on the job. And I found that it just was very, very different. So because of that, I just felt like, oh, I can't, I'm probably not even going to land an internship or a job, so I can just learn. Because with finance, you're not saying things like, I balance these accounts in my spare time. Here's a portfolio of all of that. So it was a complete different experience. And I'm very glad that when I was applying, I applied very, very early from the time that I graduated. But of course, the pandemic hit. And then I was getting floods of rejection emails saying, we're on a hiring freeze, we're no longer hiring, all these things. And it felt like I was the world's biggest failure. This was all while I was in my final year of my accounting and economics degree. And I literally felt like this isn't for me. Maybe I should apply for sales jobs, because it just felt like, the easier path, or maybe I should go into product, because clearly they kept saying to me, we liked your personality, but you're not quite technical enough. But I decided to use this as a learning experience. And what can I really learn from all of my rejections? So that's when I spoke to my friend about the way that she was applying for jobs. And she was actually the one that told me that she writes down every single question that she's asked, and she uses that information to go in even stronger next time. And I was so inspired by this, and I was like, okay, I'm going to do that. And I remember I had an awful interview. I was literally like, when you're screaming internally, because they were asking me like the Git commands. I was asking about OOP, which I know now, but at the time I actually didn't know. And I felt like, oh my gosh, I had to say in the interview, I don't know the Git commands. I haven't actually used the terminal. But as soon as the interview ended, I realized that I now need to learn about Git commands, the terminal, what OOP is, and it made me stronger for my next interviews. And that happens again and again every time. So when it came to the job that I'm working in now, all I kept hearing throughout the application process is 1,500 applicants. And so I'm obviously thinking, I can just use this interview as a learning experience. And I didn't actually think I'd get the job. And to my absolute surprise, I did. But can you imagine if I hadn't applied because I was too scared of being rejected? I would never been in the role that I'm in now. So I'd like to ask all of you, when you think about failure, how does that make you feel? So in the chat, if you can say like how that makes you feel, that'd be great. Michael says annoyed. Yep. Ruth says fearful. Kimberly says scared but excited. Yep. Jessica, hopeless. Farah, scared. Yeah, ashamed, stressed, sad, embarrassed, frustrated. Yep, Jonathan, a challenge to overcome. I really like anxious, not good enough. I can definitely relate to that, Claire. Frustrated, sad and disappointed. anxious. I'm hearing frustrated quite a bit. Yep, overwhelmed, self-doubt. Absolutely, definitely. I can not good enough. Yep, I can completely relate. I came up with a few things myself as well, like low self-esteem, embarrassment. You know, the spotlight effect where you feel like everyone's looking at you intrinsically, like everything that you're doing and analyzing you on such a deep level that it almost feels quite exposing. Disappointment, heightened levels of anxiety, low mood, fear, demotivated, panicked. And for me, definitely feeling like you want to escape. But now let's reframe this and let's ask, how can we can ask ourselves several questions. What can I learn from this failure? And especially knowing that everyone fails and most people learn and grow from it, should I look at this as a failure or as a learning experience? And what will have happened if I hadn't have failed? For example, like there's so many things I failed at, but it made me learn how not to do it or how to do it in the future. Or sometimes I'm a lot more attentive when it comes to certain things because I've previously failed at the past. I want to make that distinction that failure isn't who you are, so it doesn't define you. It is something that you experience. And I think this is a great thing to really take on, because when you feel like you are a failure, it triggers all of those emotions that you feel. But if you see it as an experience that a lot of people go through, it kind of makes you, makes it less daunting and less like it's who you are. So that's definitely a thing too. So let's talk about some people who have bounced back from failure. So Meryl Streep was told that she was too ugly to play a role in King Kong. Michael Jordan was cut from his high school varsity team and went to a more junior team. And Oprah Winfrey was told that she was unfit for television news. So in the chat, can you tell me, what do you think that they all have in common? Didn't give up, rejection, success, resilience. There is a you got it. Jana said it. Jessica said it. Yep. Determination. Yeah. They all learn from their objections. Yep, absolutely. It's definitely resilience. That's definitely the word I was looking for. So well done. And yeah, everything else is completely correct. Didn't allow other people to define them. I love that. People judging them early. Very, very true. Bounce back ability. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. So when you get to that point of being able to bounce back from failure, you can then learn to actually mend your relationship by embracing failure, welcoming it to teach you lessons, not only and to not see it as only something that everyone does, but a necessary path for you to grow and to reach your full potential. So there are so many lessons learned just from failing. I love what Will Smith says. So he has a video where he speaks about to fail early, fail often, and fail forward. He speaks about how successful people fail a lot, but what they do is they actually extract the lessons from that failure to reach their next phase of success. And he says that failure actually helps you to recognize the areas where you need to evolve. And I thought that was absolutely brilliant when I read that, because in tech, we're failing all the time. I see the red error messages every single day. I was failing unit tests yesterday. So it was brilliant to know that failure isn't necessarily such a bad thing, and it can always be used as a learning opportunity. So you must be thinking now, so what now? What can I do now to help me overcome my fear of failure? Now that we know that failure is not only necessary, but it's beneficial, how do we start our journey to overcome it? So first thing is, definitely remember that social media are the highlight reels and not an accurate representation of what people are going through. So I think that because sometimes when we're in our going through like our low moments, and we can turn to social media and see the highlight reels on LinkedIn, so excited that I've landed this, amazing that I've done that. But it can make us feel like everyone's winning and we're the only ones that are going against the grain and failing, but that isn't necessarily the case. It's just about that not everyone is as open about their failures as others are. And sometimes even when we're told that that person has failed, oh yeah, but you know, they failed at that, but they're this. I even experienced this myself when I was doing a little pair program with my friend, and she got two offers from huge companies. And she's like, yeah, Amber, but I failed at, and she was listing out all the companies she failed at. And I was kind of like, yeah, but but you still got it now. And she said that it's interesting that I'm so focused on her wins and not her losses, but for myself, I was so focused on my losses and not my wins. And I was like, oh, I've been read. I have been read. Okay, that is a thing. So definitely, it's just from focus. Just give yourself some perspective in that regard. And I love this book and this quote. It's feel the fear and do it anyway. So there's a lot of things that I do, like even stuff like me going for the jobs I didn't necessarily feel like I was qualified for, and going to those interviews and being asked technical questions that I literally sometimes did not know the answer to. But that was me just feeling the fear and do it anyway. So just because something scares you doesn't mean that it has to stop you from doing it. You can still do it, but you're still feeling scared. Like even earlier today, I was thinking, I'm going to do this talk and failure, and I'm quite nervous, ironically, to do it. And what if it isn't good? And what if no one likes it? But I always want to show up for myself and at least try and say, well, at least I tried. Even if it didn't go well, I did my best, I prepared, and all the other things. So yeah, like sometimes I'll literally be internally screaming. So just because you see things doing stuff doesn't mean that you're not so those people aren't actually scared doing it themselves. Celebrate your wins and document them. So sometimes when we're very, very afraid of failure, we can define ourselves on all the things that we can't do. But if you look at your wins, so I've learned this from a workshop that I went to called Confident and Killing It. And she got us to do a monthly wins tracker where we just write down all of our wins. And I started doing this in the dreaded year of 2020 because it felt like all my options were just non-existent anymore. Like all my opportunities were being taken from me. But because I'd wrote down my wins, so little things like I learned about this concept today, I reached out to this person, I went to this meeting. It made a difference when I was before my interviews to say, oh, okay, like I've actually been doing some other things, and that makes me qualified to at least be here. I think that makes a big difference. And it's easy for us to focus on the negative stuff and dismiss all the positive things that we've done. Focus on your strengths. So when we're so convinced that our weaknesses outweigh our strengths, this is when the fear of failure can consume us. But confidence actually comes from knowing who you are and where your strengths lie. And when you focus on your strengths, it can give you a good position to be like, I am qualified to do this, and I will go against the grain, and it will be okay because my strengths lie around here too. Don't feed the critic. Every single person has their inner critic inside of them, right? And our inner critic can tell us we can't, we're not good enough, the worst will happen. And I want you to challenge that. And you can be different phases of your life, because I remember there was one time I couldn't challenge that. It felt like it was controlling me rather than me being able to control it. And one thing I learned to do is, instead of assuming the worst, how can I see what if it does work out? And I was watching a lot of sportsman documentaries, because they always have amazing stories, because they're literally pushing their bodies to the limit. And it's a mental thing as well. And I was looking to, like, when sports people trained, they aren't able to do things by coach saying to them, you can't do this, stop doing this. The coach is literally believing them, pushing them, saying, you can do this, one more, you got this. And I challenge you, next time you become aware of the inner critic, try to change that critic into a coach, and that coach is believing you, telling you you can. And remember, going back to your strengths, back to your wins, and I promise you, it will make a huge difference. Surround yourself with people who are fearless or doing the things that you want to do. So, for example, when I decided that I was going to start putting myself out there by creating a blog and put myself out there by posting on LinkedIn, even though it scared me, I just decided to follow all the people that are doing the same. And it made me feel like this is now a norm, and this isn't something that, oh, what if people from school see this and they think it's cringe, or what if people think that it's cringe? It was amazing to be around those people, because it meant that we could support each other, hold each other accountable. And especially in tech, there's loads of different communities that you can join. I'm a part of loads of communities. Codebar has a Slack channel that people are very, very engaged in. I'm part of Coding Black Females. Their community is amazing. And Code First Girls. We're all very, very supportive of each other in our journeys in tech as well. So yeah, now you've heard this talk, is there anything that you'll do differently when you fail next? Because let's be honest, failure is guaranteed, but is there anything that you do differently? I'd love to read some in the chat. I'll give you a minute to think about it. Okay, so Johnny says, corporate and team culture matters so much when it comes to how failure is treated as blame or as a learning opportunity. Are there any dev or management practices that can encourage the latter? That's a very interesting question. So a teacher says, have ice cream. I love that. Oh, I love that answer. Johnny, I'll answer your question at the end. Yeah, that's try and fail faster. I love that, Jonathan. Yeah. Oh, interesting. I'm sorry about that, Johnny. Webster says, learn from the experience. Pip says, study more. Ahmed says, document and appreciate small wins and actually appreciate failure. I love to hear that. That's amazing. That is honestly amazing. Ruth said, we'll definitely try turning up the inner coach. I love that. Please reach out to me and tell me how that goes. Azizula says, relax and start again. Michael says, take a break, go for a walk and try again. That's so important as well. I wish I touched on taking a break, but yeah, definitely take a break. Neil says, I often hesitate to apply or challenge myself through fear of failure. It's a mindset that I'm working on changing. It's these type of sessions that really help. Oh, that's amazing to hear. Thank you so much. I'm glad that you've addressed that, because you'd be surprised. There's so many things that if I just didn't go for, I would never have known, including the job that I'm working at now. So that's amazing that you're actively working on that. Jonathan says, not be afraid to fail, embrace it instead. Amazing. Jessica says, shake it off and speak to myself as if I was speaking to a friend. Oh, I love that. I love that. I love that. It's so easy to say things to yourself that you'd never dare say to anyone else. Jessica, I absolutely love that. I remember reading about this and saying the conclusion was to try and be your own best friend, because you wouldn't speak to other people the way that you're speaking to yourself. So thank you for saying that. Haley says, celebrate making mistakes, even if no one else wants to celebrate with you. I'll celebrate with you. I'll celebrate with you. We can have like a supporting club where we all document our mistakes and we cheer about it, or we say what our lessons learned were. That is amazing. Well, actually, thank you so much. Let's connect. I have a blog on ambershan.co.uk. My Instagram is Code Her Journey, Twitter Amberly Tech, and my LinkedIn is Amber Shand. So I'll try and stop sharing my screen and I can get to answering some questions. So I'm actually okay, good. That's me not sharing my screen anymore. So do you have any questions, comments? That would be great. I left 10 minutes for some questions. And Johnny says to I think maybe to learn to err is human, to learn divine.
Hey.
Heya.
Do we have any questions for Amber? Well, we've got 10 minutes. Did you listen to the podcast, How to Fail?
By Elizabeth
Day, yeah.
Yeah, I did. I thought it was brilliant. It was brilliant.
I love it. Oh, how can I enable my mic? There's a little mic icon at the bottom, Mo.
Oh, Jonathan asked a really good question. When was the last time that I failed and what did I do? Okay, let's not talk about the unit test thing because that was literally yesterday. That is a very good question. I think that I don't actually document my failures as much as I don't document my failures as much as I did But I think the big thing that I failed at, that I still think about to this day, was my nightmare interview when when it was actually a very, very like basic interview. And I even knew that at the time, but I couldn't answer any of the questions. And I was sharing, okay. So this is exactly what happened, right? It was an interview, and I thought that it was going to be like a conversation-based kind of interview. And for some reason, I didn't think to ask. I didn't think that on the first interview, I'd be sharing my screen and doing a technical test. So I wasn't actually prepared. So we're doing our little chit chat, and he's kind of like rushing through it, and I'm confused. Why are you rushing through this, chit chat? And he's like, oh yeah, like it's a technical assessment. Do you want to share your screen? Here's the code sandbox link. I was just so stressed out and overwhelmed because I was prepared all the reasons why I wanted to work there, my skill set, and it was just like doing like a search bar, linking it to an API, and I was just thrown so off guard. I basically needed him to tell me everything because I hadn't done that much JavaScript at the time, so I didn't know stuff like document get element by ID and all these other things. And so he's literally telling me the answers, and it's basically like a one-to-one coaching session with codebar at this point, because it's like she clearly doesn't know the answers, and he was helping me so much. I remember I was screaming so much internally afterwards. I literally was physically screaming for a long time and cringing throughout my whole body. But the amazing thing was I had never actually done a front-end interview. So the great learning lesson was exactly what I needed to know, and I had experience of what a front-end interview was like. And definitely that learning lesson of make sure you ask what kind of interview it is before you go to the interview. Because when you make that assumption, you can be screaming like me and trying to link an API to something else. So yeah, what steps can I take in a situation where I realize how bad I'm feeling in the middle of an interview? That was literally me. And how do you know when it's time to stop learning and start applying for jobs? Okay, two amazing questions. First of all, I was very tempted just to close my laptop, right, when this was happening, or turn off my Wi-Fi. But I was too scared that if I did that, then I'd be more memorable. And I just wanted to be out of his memory as soon as possible. So I just breathed and kind of accepted the fact that I didn't know the answers. But fortunately, my interviewer was really, really nice and extremely patient with me. So I would just say, to breathe, and just say, and you know that it's not lasting for 2 hours, 8 hours, it's for 45 minutes to an hour. So just embrace that time and just be okay. And remember to mentally jot down or physically jot down the questions that you're asked and use that to be amazing in your next interview. And you don't ever stop learning. So the question is, how do you know when to stop learning and start applying? You never stop learning. The learning continues while you're applying. I was definitely applying before I felt ready, because I felt like I needed to know, what is this job interview like? How far can I get? What can I do to stand out? And especially against computer science grads, because I come from a degree in economics and accounting. I didn't go to a formal boot camp either. So I would definitely apply for jobs before you even feel ready. And if you get that feedback of not even landing the interview, then you know that it's either your CV or your applications that need to change, and make those changes based on that kind of response. Debbie says, I've had a live coding interview where I wanted to close my laptop too. I'm so sorry that this is such a relatable experience. I wouldn't wish this upon anyone, but it happens. And it's just like, we're still alive, we're still okay. And that it doesn't define us. It can just make us better for our next interview. So yeah. Michael says, you'll never be ready, so go for it now. It's so true. It's so true. Sometimes you never feel ready because, as I'm always told that, the job rec is like a wish list, and not to take it literally. And I'm reading it like strong JavaScript skills. I'm not sure I have that. So yeah, definitely just go for it. And the worst that can happen is you're rejected. You're rejected at the CV stage or even in the interview, but you have the same outcome as if you had never applied. So just take a chance on yourself, because you may be surprised. How do you find out what you're doing wrong if you never get to an interview? I think that if you're constantly getting rejection emails from your CV, then you'd probably benefit from reaching out to someone to look over your CV and see if you're hitting those kind of keywords, because some people use like what is it called? Do you know, Kimberly, what it's called when you they scan for keywords in your CV, and if you don't have those keywords, they basically reject you automatically?
I don't know.
But yeah, that's the thing. And so I think there's websites out there that you can go to see how strong your CV is in terms of keywords and what kind of things that they'd match you for. Because I remember when I did mine, it said sales, because that's all my experience was in, like sales, business, and I wasn't doing enough keywords. So definitely look that up or reach out to me later. I'll have a look for the site that I used, but it was really helpful if in case that you apply for those companies, you just do a scan to weave out CVs because it gets too many applications. No, yeah. But there's a specific website you can use to check. And I think there was a question that I was asked earlier, but there's been so many other things. Something about unsupportive team. I'll try to find it. Oh yeah, Johnny. So back to your question about, so Johnny said earlier about corporate and team structure matters so much when it comes to how failure is treated. As blame or as a learning opportunity, are there any dev or management practices that can encourage the latter? I think that you can encourage the latter by having those conversations with the leaders and people in that group, and just to say that to address how failure is being perceived and what we can do better next time. I'm not too sure about actual management practices, but I'll actually look into it because that's a very, very interesting talk and an interesting blog post that I could do later. So thank you for that question. But I would definitely have that conversation and how you can make that environment better for everyone and the benefits of making that environment better. Like hearing things like why you didn't finish your ticket is not empowering at all. And so it takes a lot of guts to have that conversation, but it's a necessary conversation. So maybe speak to your manager and have in your one-to-one and just to address it. So Webster says you can add mention text to the top of the CV with all your keywords. Make sure it is in white text. What a hack. Thank you, Webster. Johnny says +1. Also do that. Yes, the keyword filter is called ATS, Applicant Tracking System. Yeah, thanks for Googling that. Yep. Yes, Black Hat SEO. And now it's time. I thought now it's time. Thank you so much for having me, everyone. And please reach out to me if you ever need to talk about anything. I'm so happy if you enjoyed it, if you took something away from it. And yeah, I'm looking forward to the amazing talks during the rest of the day. And hey, Debbie, because Debbie has absolutely smashed 100 days of coding several times as well. So shout out to Debbie.